Annie, I heard you weren't feeling well today.
Yeah, it's just cold. I've been alone in my room all day. I'm bored.
I thought you might say that, so I came ready. I came here to be with you and to share some stories of people whose lives are wonderful examples of God being with us.
What do you mean God being with us?
Even if we can't see Him, God is always right with us. And He works in many different ways to make sure that we are never alone. Would you like to hear a story?
You bet.
This story takes place long after King David and King Solomon. Many of God's people began to forget about God and His good ways. As their faith in God weakened, so did their nation.
That's sad. What happened to them?
The kingdom of Judah was conquered, and many of God's people were taken far, far from their homes and forced to live as exiles in a land that belonged to other people.
That sounds hopeless.
Nothing is hopeless for God. He has a plan. God had sent His messengers to His people. One of them was Isaiah. God's messengers warned the people of the consequences for their actions. Those messengers reminded them that God would forgive them. God would bring them back to their own land if they chose to follow Him again.
And that's what Isaiah told God's people?
Yes, he was one of the most famous of God's messengers, and he lived during a very hard time. Judah's good king, Uzziah, had died. The people felt like they lost so much. They didn't know what the future would be like, but they did know there was another army who was threatening to conquer both the kingdoms of God's people, Israel and Judah.
Oh man, I bet they were really scared. They didn't know who would protect them.
You're right. But God wanted His people to know that even though Uzziah was gone, the King of Heaven still reigned. So God spoke to Isaiah in a vision and showed him something truly amazing. God showed Isaiah a vision of Himself, the Lord sitting on His great throne. Isaiah looked with awe. God was so huge and powerful that His robe filled the whole space. Flying above His throne were His unique angelic beings called seraphim.
What were they like?
Oh, they were mighty creatures with 3 pairs of wings. They used 2 wings to fly, 2 wings to cover their faces, and 2 wings to cover their feet.
Why'd they do that?
They covered their eyes because even for those mighty creatures, the Lord's presence was too bright to witness. Then they covered their feet to show honor to the Lord.
They sound incredible.
Oh, they started singing about God's great power, and their voices shook the stone door frame of the temple. The temple filled with smoke as they sang.
That would be amazing to see.
As Isaiah looked at all of these things, he began to worry. He realized that he was an unholy person, standing in the presence of the most holy God.
What does holy mean?
Holy means being pure, spotless, and without sin or wrongdoing. God does not allow sin in His presence, and Isaiah feared he would be destroyed for his sin. He cried out, "I'm about to be destroyed. My mouth speaks sinful words, and I live among people who speak sinful words."
What happened? Did Isaiah die?
No! God had chosen Isaiah as His messenger, so God would wash away Isaiah's sin. One of the seraph creatures used tongs to pick up a hot coal and touched it to Isaiah's lips. Isaiah's guilt and sin were taken away, and Isaiah could speak with the Lord.
Whoa, what did he say?
Well, one does not just start rambling to God. Isaiah listened for what God would say. That's when God asked a question, "Who will I send?" God wanted to send a messenger to His people. Isaiah was so encouraged by God's mercy and forgiveness that he answered, "Here I am, send me."
That's so cool. Isaiah must have been happy to be able to share God's messages.
Yes, but that didn't make it easy. In fact, God told Isaiah that the people of Israel would not pay attention to God's words. He said their ears would be plugged up and their eyes would be closed to God. But God wanted Isaiah to speak the truth to the people anyway. Isaiah asked, "Lord, how long will it be like that? How long will the people reject your message?" That's when God shared the bad news. The Israelites would continue to disobey until they were conquered, and the people were taken away, forced to live in their enemy's country.
Oh no, that's really sad.
It is so very sad. But God told Isaiah this would not be the end of Israel. God would preserve his people, and the day would come when he would rescue them. God would never leave his people, and he would continue to remind them through his messengers that he is with them. Let me ask you one last question. Why do you think God asked for a messenger?
I don't know.
God loves people so much that he wanted them to know that one day he would rescue them and he would never leave them. God reminds people through his messengers that he is with his people. God calls people to be his messengers.